This is Kimberly Titlebaum. I'm from Recipes for Success in partnership with the beautiful High Point Library, and we're doing our next segment of our Culinary Kids. We're using the book How to Learn to Cook in 10 Lessons. Now, today we're going to be talking about baking, and I want to show you something. This is an oven. Most of you are pretty familiar with it, but do you know the difference between baking and broiling? That's the two functions that you do in an oven. It's very, very important you get this right, and I'll show you why. When you bake, baking depends on slow, even heat that completely surrounds the food. So, your heat comes from the top, it comes from the bottom, and it heats up both sides. So when you put food in there, it is completely surrounded by heat. And when you bake between 200 degrees and maybe around 350. 350 is normally the part that you really bake in. But when you broil, it's an entirely different kind of cooking. When you broil, if you bend way down here, you'll see these wires at the top. When you broil, that's where the heat comes, from the top, not the bottom, not the sides. And because the heat only comes from one direction, it's very high heat. When you turn on your broil, it turns this on and it goes red hot. And it cooks at red hot temperatures, 450 to 550, almost twice as much as when you bake. And you only broil for short amounts of time. When you bake something, you may bake it for 8 minutes, you might bake it for 15, 20 minutes if you're baking something like a roast or something. You might be baking for 20, 30, 40 minutes at a time. But when you broil, you're only going to be broiling for a couple of minutes at the outside. Now, if you think, I'm going to bake some cookies, and they're going to go in the oven and they're going to cook for 15 minutes, but if you're not careful and you set it for broil rather than bake, and you put cookies in that are supposed to bake at 300 degrees for, say, 10 or 15 minutes, you put them under broil at twice the heat, you're going to be pulling out charcoal briquettes, and let me tell you, they don't make for good eating. So, what you're going to do is set your oven for bake in this case, because what we're going to be doing in just a few minutes, we're going to learn how to make mini pita pizzas. These make a great afternoon snack. They're a pretty good breakfast, and in a pinch, they make a perfectly adequate dinner if you add some things to them, like a nice salad. All right, so the thing we have to do if we're going to bake, we have to preheat. You may see that on a lot of recipes, preheat at 225. Now, what preheating is, it is letting a cold oven heat up to the right temperature and then it holds it there. Doesn't let it get too hot, doesn't let it sink back down and get cold. It has the thermostat that'll keep it at exactly the right temperature. And so, in this case, we are going to preheat to 350. It'll take a few minutes. That's okay. While it's preheating, we're going to go put together our pizzas. Okay. All right. Now, this is the book we're using. You can check this out of your library. How to Cook in 10 Easy Lessons by Amy Sweetser. Sorry about that. It's a great book. It's full of some fun illustrations, but it makes it real easy. This is something to do with a family, I think. But it's a great way to learn how to cook. Now, we are going to be baking our pizzas, and in this case, I started with, these are mini pita breads. You've seen pita bread, you can get them in the bread department, and these make great snacks. You can do just a couple of them at a time. They keep pretty well in the fridge. Now, when my kids were little, I'd make them when they come home for school, or let them make them. I'd let them do a whole pack, and then as soon as they're done, I'd refrigerate them, and then they make breakfast the next morning. Talk about an easy breakfast. And who doesn't like an easy meal in the morning? So we start with our pitas. And now we're going to add, this is pizza sauce. It looks like salsa, or it looks like spaghetti sauce, but it's already seasoned. It's a little thicker than spaghetti sauce, but it seasons very similar. So you're gonna add about a spoonful, give or take, to each one of your pitas. Just about, oh, it smells great. It has all those lovely seasonings in them. And the nice thing about this is that you can seal it up again and put it in the refrigerator, and you could use it for tomorrow's snacks and the days after that. You always want to store things carefully. Put the top on good and get them into the refrigerator. Now what we're going to do is smooth out. You're going to take your sauce and spread it almost to the sides. Not quite all the way. And you kind of want to get all those little nooks and crannies. And just spread it out in each case. Just like that. Doesn't get much easier than that. Then you can take your veggies, and in this case I like now these are sweet red bell peppers. I love these on a pizza. They're almost as sweet as apples, and I love the crunch. So I'm just going to put a couple of these onto each of my pizzas. Now the wonderful thing is, remember, a good after-school snack is one that has a grain. In this case, we're using the whole grain of pita bread. Has some veggies or fruits. Did you know, people usually think peppers are a vegetable, but I like to think of them as a fruit. Why? Because the seeds are on the inside. And that's how you tell a fruit from a veggie is where they wear their seeds. So I've got all my peppers on. Now what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to put on mushrooms. I love mushrooms. I'm going to put some mushrooms on top, just a couple of them. Mushrooms are so good. I love the flavor they impart. And I also love the fact that they're good for our bodies. They help boost up our immune system. Almost any of our white fruits and vegetables help with that. So I'm just going to heap on the mushrooms. Now, if you don't like mushrooms, you can leave them off. You can put something else on. Here's the thing. Everyone has things they don't like. With these little mini pepper pizzas, you can make them just the way you want. Like, for example, my husband likes olives. I don't like olives. But that's okay. I can make some of these with olives on them and some of them without olives, and I'm fine with that. It's called individualizing. Put what you like on your pizza. Now I'm going to put tomato slices. Tomatoes is another one of those vegetables that's actually, I like to think of as a fruit, but we just add a couple of these slices. I make my slices fairly thin to each pizza. And I'm using, by the way, Roma tomatoes. The reason why I'm using these, I love to use these when I'm doing anything where you slice your tomato, because these don't have too much juice in them. They're mostly nice, meaty tomatoes. And even if you dice them up like these right here, you don't lose a lot of your tomato taste into the juice. You're just putting it all on whatever you're making. So it's a great way of doing it. Now, in this case, I'm going to add a little bit of ham because I want to have a little bit more protein. I like to have a lot of protein in my after-school snacks. So you can use pepperoni or sausage or something like that, but I chose to do a low-fat ham. So I'm just going to put a couple of pieces of ham on. I just kind of just took a nice thin ham and diced it up a little bit. And now I'm going to add cheese. This is mozzarella cheese. You know, the last couple of weeks ago, we talked about grating cheese. Now this is grated cheese. Now I'm using mozzarella because I like it the way, this has a low melting temperature. So this will melt beautifully and just go all over your pizza. So, but actually before I add that, I almost forgot, I'm gonna add just a little bit. I'm gonna put in a bowl just a tiny bit of olive oil. Didn't take much. And I'm gonna use my brush, and I'm gonna brush a little bit of olive oil on my vegetables and a little bit on my ham. Now this keeps things from burning, and it just gives you a little bit of a really good flavor. Make sure that you get this everywhere. And the next thing you're going to do after you get a little bit of olive oil where it needs to be, I like to use, this is Italian seasoning. Now you might say, what if I don't have Italian seasoning? Well, that's fine. If you've got oregano, rosemary, and thyme, and a little bit of basil, it's the same thing. This is just all of those wonderful flavors. When you smell this, this is what Italian food smells like. And what I'm going to do is just get all where the oil was, I'm going to give it a nice sprinkle with these seasonings. And that's what's going to take it from just tasting like a bunch of things put together into an actual Italian masterpiece. Haven't even gone into the oven yet, and they smell delightful. And now, the last thing I add is the cheese. I'm just going to sprinkle my cheese on. I'm going to add plenty. And this cheese is going to melt in, and it's going to kind of fill it up. I'm just going to add lots. You can't add too much. You don't want to do that. But experience shows me that this is about the right thing to do. Now what I'm going to do, my oven is preheated. I'm going to put these in the oven, and I'm not going to wander off. I'm not going to get on my phone. I'm not going to watch television. I'm not even going to pick up a book to read. I'm going to stay nearby the kitchen, and I'm going to put this in the oven, and I'm going to use the time while it's cooking, which will take maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and I'm going to clean up my mess here. That's always a good idea. Cooking is a fun thing to do, but it's no good if you leave the mess for someone else to clean up. So while you're waiting for things to cook, that's the time to clean up. Here we go. Hi, okay. Our kitchen is clean. We've washed up everything. I've taken my pizza out of the oven, and now we've got these lovely, luscious pizzas with a crispy crust. And I've cut this one into pieces anyway. And now I've got my lovely gooey cheese, and I've got my vegetables and a little bit of ham. Well, messy, but good. Easy to do. And it's so much fun to make in the oven. Again, makes a great afternoon snack, makes a good breakfast the morning after, and even not a bad dinner. Add a salad, you've got dinner ready. Try it yourself and let me know what you think. See you next time.